Thank you, Minister, and good morning. 24 new positive cases today in Victoria, all community cases. That gives us 246 active cases of COVID currently in this outbreak. There are 12 people currently in hospital. 2 of those are in ICU, and of course we send our very best wishes to all of them for their effective and swift recovery. We have around 15,000 primary close contacts that we're following through at the moment, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Of the new cases today, of the 24, 18 were in isolation for their full infectious period. 6 were not, and I'll give some details on those. Of the cases today, 10 are associated with students and household members of Altaqua College, and we've seen this pattern now over the last few days of the virus continuing to be very aggressive in those households. 3 students and 7 household members. There are 4 household members associated with Glenroy West Primary School in that Glenroy West cluster. That gives us 14. There are 2 contacts associated with retail facilities in Caroline Springs Square Shopping Centre. That gives us 16. 1 household member associated with Newport Footy Club, 17. And 2 new cases associated with the other positive cases at 480 Lygon Street we identified a couple of days ago. Both those cases at 480 Lygon Street have now moved out. One is at 480 Lygon Street, the other is at 510 Lygon Street. We then have 4 cases that are currently under further investigation. One is a case in Glenroy. We have some leads that we're following up of possible connections. And we have 2 separate cases in Altona North. Again, we're following a number of leads as their potential acquisition. And finally, we have a teenager from Glen Ira who works at the pizza store in Malvern East that we listed yesterday. That gives us a total of 24 new cases today. There's a lot of work been done over the last few days to try and establish the links. And I think when I spoke a few days ago, I talked about 8 different clusters that we were working through. I'm pleased to confirm we're now seeing a clearer shape emerging of the clusters that we have. So of the 246 cases, 211 are linked and associated with this dominant cluster that started at Hobson's Bay, spread out to Caroline Springs, to Melton, through those large schools that we were dealing with 10 days or so ago, 2 weeks ago, and then into Glenroy. So those cases are all directly connected through a whole series of linkages. That is the largest part of the cluster. Most of those cases are now well understood. All those cases are well understood. Obviously, significant numbers of people in isolation associated with that cluster. I'll expect to continue to see cases coming out as those families and people continue to isolate over the coming days. We have 8 cases associated with one of the original clusters from 2 weeks ago at West Footscray. We talked about it then as I think it's a City of Maribyrnong case. It is actually in West Footscray. Those 8 cases across 2 households, all quite stable. That hasn't moved. Isolation has gone well. A number of those cases have actually now passed their infectious period. We then have 3 cases associated with the City of Melbourne. That still remains unlinked. We've talked about that, I think, last week. We have 6 cases associated with the 480 Lygon Street tower. I'll come on to that in a moment. And we have a couple of cases associated with a Wyndham connection and a courier worker. Again, those cases haven't moved much. We think we have some probable linkages, but there's 2 there sort of on the outer edge of the radar. That leaves us with 15 cases that are associated in this area around St Kilda, particularly Caulfield North and Middle Park. They're all very, very different, and as Kate explained yesterday, there is no connection bar anything apart from geography. We have within that cluster, we have accountants, we have architects, we have a sex worker, we have members of the Orthodox Jewish community, and we have a pizza guy who works in a pizza shop in Glen Ira. It is a very broad and disparate range of people. The only thing that connects them at this point in time is some association, particularly in that St Kilda area, which is why we're really encouraging anybody who lives, works, or visits and actively uses that St Kilda area, please consider coming forward to get tested. We are exceptionally concerned about what we don't know yet in that area. There are clearly a number of chains of transmission that we do not yet have full pictures of, and we really want to use the next few days to get a full understanding of any possible transmissions that might be happening in that wider area. There's a number of exposure sites listed on our website. There are additional testing facilities we've put in place over recent days. There are some large testing centres that the Minister's gone through, particularly Brighton Golf Club and the racing track circuit at Albert Park, and of course the additional site we've put in place at the Palais Theatre in St Kilda. A number of different options. We really need that broad swathe of the inner south to come forward and get tested. If you've been to those exposure sites, if you're actively using the retail strips around Fitzroy Street and around Balaclava, we want you to come forward and get tested. We have some in-reach testing teams working as well in those areas, particularly in some of our vulnerable settings, as well as some dedicated testing around some of the retail strips to see whether we can find the source of some of these cases. In addition, we're of course now starting our day 13 testing, particularly for some of those earlier schools. We cleared 500 primary close contacts yesterday. We have around something like 7,000 primary close contacts we will be retesting for day 13 in the next couple of days. Again, my thanks to those thousands of people who are doing the hard yards of isolating. Isolating for 14 days is no easy thing. It's no small ask. My thanks to all those 15,000 people for doing it so well. We've seen, on the whole, a really exceptional level of compliance. Over 1,000 household visits yesterday, only 3 people referred on for some further investigation and some further action. In terms of testing, we did see a stronger testing day yesterday with just under 40,000 tests. That's over 500,000 tests now in the first 2 weeks of this particular outbreak. We expect to see those numbers continue to rise. I'm expecting to see another strong testing day today, particularly with that call out to the inner south. Can I also call out to the communities in Altona North? Again, 2 more cases identified today. We have a number of different lines of inquiry, but we continue to be interested in that Altona North and Newport area, particularly if you've been active in some of the cafes, if you've been out shopping in Altona North and in Newport. We'd really like you to check those exposure sites and come forward and get tested if there's any association whatsoever. Finally, on vaccinations. Over 4.1 million doses of vaccine now delivered in Victoria, just over 2 million of those by our 52 state clinics and the rest by our GPs. And can I thank everybody who is working in those vaccination centres, including our GPs, for the fantastic work they've done. I know it's been a long and hard 6 months to get to this point. We've got a very, very busy few weeks and months ahead of us. We saw a very big week last week, 357,000 vaccine doses delivered last week between the GPs and the state clinics. That's a record week we've had so far. We really need over the coming weeks and months to see those numbers continue to lift as more vaccine starts to become available in the weeks ahead. I'm also pleased to report that for the over 70s in Victoria, 84% have had their first dose of vaccine, and 52%, so over half of our over 70s are now fully vaccinated, both doses. For those in their 60s, 76% have had their first dose of vaccine, and 45% have completed their vaccination journey. For those in their 50s, like me, 70%, 7 out of 10 of us, have had our first dose of vaccine, and 30% are fully vaccinated. And for those in their 40s, 62% have had their first dose, and 30% are fully vaccinated. So those numbers are starting to become encouraging and good, but there is more to do. We have 25,000 appointments available for first dose Pfizer this week and next week. I'd really like to see people come forward today to start making use of those Pfizer doses. We also have 24,000 first dose AstraZeneca appointments available today. Again, we'd love to see people come forward and get themselves vaccinated. We need to be seeing more and more people coming forward every day, every week, to continue that vaccination and to get us beyond these outbreaks.